I smoothed my dress for the 100th time, taking a deep breath as Ben's hand squeezed mine reassuringly. The imposing oak door loomed before us, a barrier between me and my future in-laws. This was it, the moment of truth. "Ready, sweetheart?" Ben's warm smile melted away some of my anxiety. I nodded, mustering a confident grin. "As I'll ever be." The door swung open, revealing a tall, distinguished man with Ben's kind eyes. "There you are," he exclaimed, pulling Ben into a bear hug. "And you must be Nora. Welcome, my dear." "Thank you, Mr. Harrison," I said, accepting his firm handshake. "Please call me Alan. Come in, come in. Patricia's been fussing all morning." We stepped into a pristine foyer that could have graced the pages of a home decor magazine. Everything was immaculate, from the polished hardwood floors to the crystal chandelier overhead. "Benjamin!" A sharp voice cut through the air. I turned to see a woman descending the staircase, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, her posture ramrod straight. This had to be Patricia. "Hello, Mother," Ben said, his voice tightening almost imperceptibly. Patricia's eyes swept over me, assessing. "So this is Nora." I extended my hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Harrison." She barely touched my fingers before withdrawing. "Charmed, I'm sure. Well, don't just stand there. Let's move to the sitting room. I've prepared tea." As we followed her, I caught Ben's apologetic glance. I gave him a small smile, determined not to let his mother's chilly reception dampen my spirits. The sitting room was as immaculate as the foyer, with delicate china teacups already set out. We settled onto the plush sofas, the silence thick with unspoken expectations. "So, Nora," Patricia began, her voice syrupy sweet, "Ben tells us you're from, where was it again? Ohio?" "Indiana, actually," I corrected gently. "A small town outside of Indianapolis." "Ah, yes. How quaint." The way she said it made it sound like anything but. "And what is it you do, dear?" "I'm a pediatric nurse," I replied, my chin lifting slightly. "I've been working at Children's Hospital for the past 5 years. Patricia's eyebrows arched. "A nurse? How noble. Though I always thought Benjamin would end up with someone more ambitious. Perhaps a doctor?" "Mother," Ben warned, his jaw clenching. Alan cleared his throat. "I think it's wonderful, Nora. The world needs more caring people like you." I smiled gratefully at him. "Thank you, Alan." Yes, very admirable." Patricia waved her hand dismissively. "Now, Benjamin, have you given any more thought to joining your father's firm? A man in your position should be thinking about his future, especially with a wife to support." Ben's hand found mine, squeezing gently. "Actually, Mother, Nora and I are quite happy with our current careers. We support each other equally." Patricia's lips pursed as if she'd tasted something sour. "I see. Well, I suppose times are changing. Speaking of change, did you hear about Sarah?" The sudden shift in topic caught me off guard. I'd heard Ben mention his older sister, but I hadn't met her yet. "What about Sarah?" Ben asked, wariness creeping into his voice. Patricia leaned forward, her eyes glittering with barely concealed glee. "Well, it seems that her marriage to Mark has finally fallen apart. I always said he wasn't good enough for her." Alan shifted uncomfortably. "Patricia, perhaps this isn't the time." "Nonsense, Alan. Families should know these things." She turned back to us. It's such a shame, but then again, Sarah always did make questionable choices." The undercurrent of malice in Patricia's voice sent a chill down my spine. I glanced at Ben, seeing the tension in his jaw, the way his fingers gripped his teacup a little too tightly. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said carefully. "Is Sarah okay?" Patricia's gaze snapped to me, sharp and assessing. "Oh, I'm sure she'll manage. She always does, doesn't she, Benjamin? Though perhaps if she'd listened to me in the first place." As Patricia launched into what was clearly a well-rehearsed critique of her daughter's life choices, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just stepped into a minefield. What exactly had happened between Sarah and Mark? And why did I have the sinking feeling that Patricia had played a larger role in their divorce than she was letting on? The cafe bustled with the midday lunch crowd, but I barely noticed the noise. My mind was still reeling from the previous day's encounter with Patricia. I stirred my latte absently, waiting for Sarah to arrive. A tall, slender woman with Ben's warm eyes rushed in, her blonde hair wind-swept. "Nora, I'm so sorry I'm late." I stood, smiling. "Sarah, it's great to finally meet you." We hugged, and I immediately felt a kinship with Ben's sister. As we settled into our seats, Sarah's expression turned apologetic. "I heard about yesterday." I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. I waved off her concern. It wasn't your fault. But I have to admit, I'm curious about what happened with Mark. Your mother seemed almost gleeful about your divorce. Sarah's face darkened. Of course she was. She orchestrated the whole thing. My jaw dropped. What? Sarah leaned in, lowering her voice. Mom never approved of Mark. He wasn't from the right background, you see. She spent years trying to drive us apart. That's terrible. I gasped. What did she do? Little things at first, backhanded compliments, accidentally excluding him from family events. But then she started spreading rumors. Sarah's voice cracked. She told our entire social circle that Mark was cheating on me. I felt a chill run down my spine. Was he? Sarah shook her head vehemently. No, never. But the damage was done. Our friends, even some of Mark's colleagues, everyone looked at us differently. The constant suspicion, the whispers. It tore us apart. My mind raced, connecting the dots. And yesterday, when she brought it up, she was gloating, Sarah finished bitterly, and probably warning you. Warning me? I echoed, confused. Sarah reached across the table, gripping my hand. Nora, you need to be careful. Mom sees you as an outsider, just like Mark. She'll try to push you out, too. My stomach churned. But why? Ben and I love each other. We're happy. That doesn't matter to her, Sarah said, shaking her head. In her mind, Ben deserves someone from our world, old money, social connections. She won't stop until she gets her way. I straightened my spine, anger replacing my initial shock. Well, she's in for a fight. I'm not going anywhere. Sarah smiled sadly. I admire your spirit, but don't underestimate her. She's relentless. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Ben. Mom's insisting on hosting an engagement party next week. I tried to talk her out of it, but she won't budge. I'm so sorry, love. I showed Sarah the message, watching her face pale. Oh, Nora, this is how it starts. What do you mean? The engagement party? It's not for you. It's for her to parade Ben in front of all her society friends' daughters. Sarah's voice was grim. She did the same thing to Mark and me. My head spun. But surely Ben wouldn't. Of course not, Sarah assured me quickly. Ben adores you, but Mom will use every trick in the book to make you look bad and push you away. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. Then I'll just have to be prepared. Sarah squeezed my hand. I'll help you. We'll face her together. As we left the cafe, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Patricia herself. Nora, dear, I do hope you have something suitable to wear for the engagement party. Perhaps we should go shopping? I know the most darling boutique. I stared at the message, my jaw clenching. The seemingly innocent offer was loaded with implications, that I wasn't good enough, that I needed her help to fit in. What is it? Sarah asked, noticing my expression. I showed her the text. It's starting, isn't it? Sarah nodded grimly. Welcome to the battlefield, Nora. Are you ready? I lifted my chin, a fire of determination burning in my chest. Bring it on. The bridal boutique was a sea of white lace and tulle, but I felt anything but serene. Patricia's voice grated on my nerves as she flitted from rack to rack, pulling out gowns that were more suited to her taste than mine. Oh, Nora, darling, she cooed, holding up a monstrosity of ruffles and beads. This would be perfect for you. It'll hide all those problem areas. I gritted my teeth, forcing a smile. Thank you, Patricia, but I was thinking of something simpler. She skipped, shaking her head. But, dear, this is your big day. You want to look like a princess, don't you? Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Ben. How's it going? Do you need a rescue? I smiled, typing back quickly. Not yet, but stay on standby. Nora? Patricia's sharp voice cut through my moment of relief. Who are you texting? It's rude to be on your phone when we're shopping for your wedding dress. I pocketed my phone, suppressing a sigh. Sorry, Patricia. It was just Ben checking in. Her eyes narrowed. Benjamin knows better than to interrupt important wedding preparations. I'll have to have a word with him about that. Alarm bells rang in my head. That's really not necessary. Nonsense, she waved me off. Now let's try on this lovely gown, shall we? An hour and several uncomfortable fittings later, I emerged from the dressing room in yet another dress I hated. Patricia clapped her hands in delight. Oh, it's perfect, she exclaimed. You almost look like you belong in our world. The backhanded compliment stung, but I held my tongue. Just then the boutique door chimed, and Sarah walked in, looking like a breath of fresh air. Sarah, I called out, relief flooding through me. "What are you doing here?" "I thought you might need some backup," she said with a wink before turning to her mother. "Hi, Mom. I hope you don't mind me crashing your shopping trip." Patricia's smile turned brittle. "Sarah, dear, how unexpected. I thought you were busy with work today." "I rearranged some things," Sarah said smoothly. She turned to me, her eyes widening in mock horror at the dress. "Oh, Nora, that's not you at all, is it?" I shook my head, grateful for the lifeline. "Not really, no." Not. Sarah linked her arm through mine. "Come on, let's find something that actually suits you." As we moved away from Patricia, I whispered, "Thank you." I was about to lose my mind. Sarah squeezed my arm. "I've been there. Don't let her bully you into something you don't want." We spent the next hour finding dresses that actually matched my style. Simple, elegant, and nothing like the overblown creations Patricia favored. When I finally stepped out in a sleek, off-the-shoulder gown, Sarah gasped. "Nora, you look stunning," she said, her eyes misting over. I turned to the mirror, my breath catching. For the first time that day, I felt like a bride. Patricia's lips were pressed into a thin line. "Well, it's different, but don't you think it's a bit plain for a Harrison wedding?" "I think it's perfect," a deep voice said from behind us. We all turned to see Ben standing in the doorway, his eyes locked on me with a look of pure adoration. "Benjamin!" Patricia sputtered. "What are you doing here? It's bad luck to see the bride in her dress before the wedding." Ben ignored her, crossing the room to take my hands in his. "You look beautiful, Nora. This is the one, isn't it?" I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. "Then this is the dress you'll wear," he said firmly, before turning to face his mother. "And Mom, I think it's time we had a talk about your behavior. This wedding is about Nora and me, not your social aspirations." Patricia's face flushed an angry red. "Benjamin, how dare you speak to me like that? I'm only trying to help." "No, Mom," Ben cut her off. "You're trying to control, just like you always do, and it stops now." As Ben led Patricia away for a private conversation, I exchanged a look with Sarah. The battle lines had been drawn, and for the first time, I felt like we might actually win this war. The aroma of roasting chicken filled our apartment as I put the finishing touches on the table setting. This dinner party was my chance to show Patricia that I could be the perfect hostess, despite my quaint Midwest upbringing. "Everything looks amazing, Nora," Ben said, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "You've outdone yourself." I leaned into his embrace, savoring the moment of calm before the storm. "I just hope your mother appreciates it." The doorbell rang, shattering our peace. Ben squeezed my hand reassuringly before going to answer it. Patricia swept in, her critical gaze taking in every detail of our home. "Well, isn't this cozy?" she said, her tone making it clear that cozy was not a compliment. Alan followed, offering me a warm smile and a bottle of wine. "The place looks lovely, Nora." As we settled around the dining table, I could feel Patricia's eyes on me, watching my every move. I took a deep breath and began serving the meal I'd spent hours preparing. "So, Nora," Patricia began, her voice syrupy sweet, "tell me about your family's traditions. I'm sure they must be so interesting." I smiled, determined not to let her get under my skin. "Well, we have a lot of wonderful traditions. Every summer, we—" "Oh, how quaint," Patricia interrupted, not even trying to hide her condescension. "I suppose that's what people do when they don't have access to more refined pastimes." Ben's fork clattered against his plate. "Mother, that's enough." But Patricia was on a roll. "I'm just trying to understand Nora's background, dear. After all, she'll need to learn how things are done in our circles if she's going to be a proper wife for you." My cheeks burned with a mix of anger and humiliation. "I assure you, Patricia, I'm quite capable of adapting to new situations." "Of course you are, dear," she patted my hand patronizingly. "But there's so much you don't know. The social obligations, the charity galas, the proper way to address people of certain standing. It's a lot to learn for someone from your background." "Mom, stop it," Ben growled, his patience clearly wearing thin. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. "I appreciate your concern, Patricia, but I'm confident in my ability to navigate any social situation." Patricia's eyes narrowed. "Really? Then perhaps you can explain the proper way to address a duchess at a formal event, or which fork to use for the fish course at a state dinner." "That's irrelevant," Ben interjected. "Nora doesn't need to know any of that." Oh, but she does, Patricia insisted. That unless you plan on embarrassing the family at every turn. Something inside me snapped. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. Enough, Patricia. I may not know which fork to use for fish, but I do know how to treat people with kindness and respect, something you seem to have forgotten. The room fell silent. Alan looked uncomfortable, while Ben stared at me with a mix of surprise and pride. Patricia's face flushed an angry red. How dare you speak to me like that, Benjamin? Are you going to let her disrespect me in this way? To my shock, Ben stood up and came to stand beside me. Actually, Mother, I think Nora's right. Your behavior tonight has been appalling. Patricia's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. I was only trying to help. No, you weren't, Ben said firmly. You were trying to belittle and intimidate Nora, and I won't stand for it anymore. Alan finally spoke up, his voice quiet but firm. Patricia, I think it's time we left. As Ben showed his parents out, I sank back into my chair, my hands shaking. What had I done? I'd just confronted my future mother-in-law, potentially ruining any chance of a peaceful family dynamic. Ben returned, kneeling beside me. Nora, I'm so sorry. I should have put a stop to her behavior long ago. I looked into his eyes, seeing nothing but love and support. What do we do now, Ben? I don't think I can keep pretending everything's okay. He took my hands in his expression serious. We don't. It's time we set some boundaries with my parents, even if it means distancing ourselves from them. My heart raced at the implications of his words. Are you sure? That's a big step. Ben nodded, his jaw set with determination. I'm sure. You're my family now, Nora, and I won't let anyone, not even my mother, treat you this way. As we held each other, I realized we were at a crossroads. The decision we made now would shape our future and our relationship with Ben's family forever. But looking into Ben's eyes, I knew that whatever came next, we'd face it together. The tension in the room was palpable as I sat between my parents and Ben, facing Patricia and Alan across the table. We'd decided to have a family dinner to discuss the wedding plans, but Patricia's behavior at our dinner party was still fresh in everyone's minds. My mother, usually the picture of Midwestern politeness, was uncharacteristically frosty towards Patricia. I must say, I was shocked to hear about your comments regarding Nora's background, she said, her voice tight. Patricia had the grace to look uncomfortable. I assure you, I meant no offense. I was merely concerned about Nora's ability to adapt to our way of life. Our way of life? My father's eyebrows shot up. And what exactly is wrong with the way we raised our daughter? Ben squeezed my hand under the table as I took a deep breath. Patricia, I understand you have concerns, but I assure you I'm more than capable of handling any social situation. Patricia's lips thinned. Oh, darling, you say that now, but you have no idea what you're getting into. The expectations, the scrutiny, it's not for the faint of heart. That's enough, Mother, Ben said, his voice sharp. Nora has shown nothing but grace and poise, despite your constant criticism. Alan cleared his throat. Perhaps we should focus on the wedding plans. Have you two decided on a venue yet? I latched onto the change of subject gratefully. Actually, we were thinking of having it at my family's lake house in Indiana. It's beautiful in the summer and... Indiana, Patricia interrupted, aghast. But darling, what about the country club? All our friends and connections will be expecting an invitation. Ben's jaw clenched. This isn't about your friends, Mom. It's about what Nora and I want. Patricia's eyes narrowed. Benjamin, you need to think about your future. The connections you make at events like this can be crucial for your career. My career is doing just fine without using my wedding as a networking opportunity, Ben snapped. The tension in the room ratcheted up another notch. I could see my parents exchanging worried glances, clearly uncomfortable with the family drama unfolding before them. I think, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, that Ben and I need to make these decisions for ourselves. We appreciate your input, Patricia, but ultimately, this is our wedding. Patricia's face flushed an angry red. You ungrateful girl. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? By turning our son against us? Mom, Ben shouted, standing up so abruptly his chair toppled backward. That's enough. I won't let you speak to Nora that way anymore. The room fell silent, everyone stunned by Ben's outburst. I reached for his hand, trying to calm him, but he was trembling with anger. Ben, Alan said softly, "Son, please sit down. Let's discuss this calmly." But Ben shook his head. "No, Dad, I'm done discussing. I'm done trying to please you and Mom at the expense of my own happiness." He turned to me, his eyes softening. "Nora, I think we need to have a private conversation." Confused and a little scared, I nodded and followed him out of the dining room and into the kitchen. Behind us, I could hear Patricia's indignant sputtering and my parents' attempts to smooth things over. Once we were alone, Ben took both my hands in his. "Nora, I can't do this anymore. I can't watch my mother tear you down day after day." My heart raced. "What are you saying, Ben?" He took a deep breath. I think we need to consider cutting ties with my parents after the wedding, at least until they can learn to respect you, respect us." I gasped, the weight of his words hitting me like a ton of bricks. "Ben, that's a huge decision. Are you sure?" He nodded, his expression resolute. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life. You're my family now, Nora. You're my future, and I won't let anyone, not even my parents, jeopardize that." As I stared into Ben's determined eyes, I realized we were standing at a crossroads. The decision we made now would change everything. Our relationship with his family, our future, maybe even who we were as people. But as the sounds of argument drifted in from the dining room, I knew we had to make a choice. "Okay," I whispered, squeezing his hands. "If you're sure, then I'm with you. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." Ben pulled me into a tight embrace, and as I buried my face in his chest, I wondered what storm we had just unleashed, and if we were truly ready to weather it. The cafe bustled around us, but Sarah and I might as well have been in our own little bubble. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hands shaking as she clutched her coffee mug. "I can't believe Ben's really considering cutting ties with Mom and Dad," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "It's not an easy decision, Sarah, but after everything that's happened—" She nodded, a bitter smile twisting her lips. "Oh, I know. Believe me, I know better than anyone what Mom's capable of." A chill ran down my spine. "What do you mean?" Sarah took a deep breath, her eyes darting around as if afraid Patricia might suddenly appear. "Remember how I told you Mom never approved of Mark?" I nodded, leaning in. "Well, it was more than just disapproval. She orchestrated our entire divorce." My jaw dropped. "What? How?" Sarah's voice cracked as she spoke. She started spreading rumors. Told everyone that Mark was cheating on me with his secretary. It wasn't true, of course, but people believed her. Our friends, our colleagues, suddenly everyone was looking at us differently. I felt sick to my stomach. "That's horrible, Sarah. I'm so sorry." She waved off my sympathy. "It gets worse. She hired someone to Photoshop images of Mark with other women, sent them to me anonymously. I was devastated, confused. I confronted Mark, and he had no idea what I was talking about. By the time we figured out what was happening, the damage was done. Our trust was shattered." My mind reeled, trying to process the depths of Patricia's cruelty. But why would she do that? Sarah's eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of pain and warning. Because Mark wasn't from the right background, because he threatened her idea of what our family should be. And Nora, she's planning to do the same thing to you. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "What?" "I overheard her on the phone," Sarah said, her voice urgent. "She was talking to one of her society friends, saying how she was going to take care of the Nora problem, just like she did with Mark. She's planning something, Nora. Something big." My heart raced, panic rising in my throat. "We have to tell Ben. We have to." "Tell me what?" We both jumped as Ben appeared at our table, his brow furrowed in concern. Sarah and I exchanged a look, and I knew we couldn't hide this from him. Taking a deep breath, I recounted everything Sarah had just told me. Ben's face grew darker with each word, his hands clenching into fists. When I finished, he was trembling with barely contained rage. "I'll kill her," he growled. "I'll fucking kill her." "Ben, no," I said, grabbing his arm. "We can't stoop to her level." "Then what do we do?" he demanded. "Just sit back and let her destroy our relationship like she did Sarah's?" Sarah spoke up, her voice stronger now. "We fight back, we expose her for who she really is." Just then my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number containing a single image. My blood ran cold as I opened it. It was a photo of me, clearly doctored, in an intimate embrace with a man who wasn't Ben. The accompanying message read, "Such a shame. I wonder what Ben will think when he sees this." My hands shook as I showed Ben and Sarah the message. Ben's face went pale, then flushed with anger. "That's it," he said, his voice deadly calm. "We're done. We're cutting them out completely." "Ben?" I started, but he cut me off. "No, Nora. This ends now. We're getting married in 2 weeks, and my parents won't be there. We'll start our new life without their toxic influence." As Ben pulled out his phone, presumably to call his parents, I exchanged a worried glance with Sarah. This was it, the point of no return. Whatever happened next would change all of our lives forever. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the storm that was about to break. We'd made our choice. Now we had to live with the consequences. The morning of my wedding day dawned bright and clear, but the knot in my stomach had nothing to do with pre-wedding jitters. Ben and I had made our decision. His parents wouldn't be attending. The peace of the last 2 weeks had been hard-won. But now, as I stood in my childhood bedroom, staring at my reflection in my wedding gown, I couldn't shake the feeling that the other shoe was about to drop. Sarah burst into the room, her bridesmaid dress swishing around her legs. "Nora, you look beautiful." Her smile faltered as she saw my expression. "What's wrong?" I shook my head, forcing a smile. "Nothing, just nerves, I guess." Sarah squeezed my hand. "Hey, it's going to be okay. Ben loves you, and that's all that matters." Just then, my phone rang. The caller ID made my blood run cold. Patricia. Sarah's eyes widened. "You don't have to answer that." But I knew I did. With trembling fingers, I picked up the phone. "Hello? Nora, darling." Patricia's voice was syrupy sweet, a stark contrast to her usual clipped tones. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." I swallowed hard. "Patricia, it's my wedding day. What do you want?" "Oh, I know, dear. That's why I'm calling. Alan and well, we've been doing some thinking. We realize we may have been a bit harsh in our judgments." My heart raced. Was this really happening? I don't know what to say. "Say you'll tell us where the ceremony is being held. We'd like to be there to support you and Benjamin." For a moment, hope fluttered in my chest. Maybe, just maybe, things could be different. But then I remembered the doctored photo, the cruel words, the pain in Sarah's eyes as she recounted her divorce. "I'm sorry, Patricia," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "But Ben and I have made our decision. The wedding is family only, and, well, you're not invited." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. "Now, you listen here, you ungrateful little—" I ended the call, my hands shaking. Sarah looked at me, her face a mixture of pride and concern. "You did the right thing, Nora." Before I could respond, there was a commotion downstairs. We rushed to the window to see Patricia's sleek black car pulling up in front of the house. "Oh, no," Sarah whispered. She wouldn't. But we both knew she would. Patricia emerged from the car, Alan trailing behind her, looking uncomfortable. "We have to warn Ben," I said, panic rising in my throat. Sarah nodded, already typing furiously on her phone. "I'll tell him. You stay here. Don't let her see you in your dress." I paced the room, my heart pounding as I heard raised voices downstairs. My parents, Ben, Sarah, all trying to reason with Patricia. Suddenly, the door burst open. Patricia stood there, her face flushed with anger. "How dare you exclude us from our own son's wedding?" I straightened my spine, meeting her gaze. "Patricia, please, this is supposed to be a happy day." "Happy?" she spat. "You've turned my son against me. You've ruined everything." "No, Mom." Ben's voice came from behind her. He stepped into the room, his eyes locked on mine. "You did that all on your own." Patricia whirled to face him. "Benjamin, you can't be serious. This girl isn't right for you. She'll never fit into our world." Ben's jaw clenched. "Then maybe it's time I found a new world, one that includes Nora and excludes your toxicity." Patricia's face crumpled, tears welling in her eyes. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. But then I remembered everything she'd done, everything she'd tried to do. "Patricia," I said softly, "I think it's time for you to leave." She looked at me, then at Ben, her eyes wild. "This isn't over," she hissed. "You'll see. You'll both see what a mistake you're making." As Alan gently led Patricia away, I sagged against Ben, the weight of everything finally hitting me. "Are we doing the right thing?" I whispered. Ben tilted my chin up, his eyes filled with love and determination. "Absolutely. Now, what do you say we go get married?" As we walked hand in hand towards our future, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we'd face them together. The war with Patricia might not be over, but today, Love had won the battle. The shrill ring of my phone pierced the peaceful morning air of our honeymoon suite. Ben stirred beside me, but I quickly silenced it, recognizing the number. Patricia, again. For a moment I considered ignoring it, as I had for the past week, but something inside me snapped. Enough was enough. "Hello, Patricia," I answered, my voice steady. "Nora, darling," she cooed, her tone dripping with false sweetness. "I hope I'm not interrupting your little getaway." I sat up straighter, steeling myself. "What do you want, Patricia?" "Oh, I just thought we should chat woman to woman. You see, I've been thinking about our little misunderstanding." I almost laughed. Misunderstanding? Is that what you call trying to sabotage our relationship? Now, she'd skied. Let's not dwell on the past. I'm willing to let bygones be bygones if you are. All you need to do is convince Benjamin to reconcile with us. After all, family is everything, isn't it? The audacity of her request made my blood boil. Family? You tried to destroy your own daughter's marriage. You sent fake photos to break us up. That's not family, Patricia. That's manipulation. "You ungrateful little," she started, but I cut her off. "No, you listen to me now," I said, my voice low and firm. "I've had enough of your games, your insults, your thinly veiled contempt for my quaint Midwestern background." "Well, You never what? Never thought I'd stand up to you? Never imagined I might have a backbone?" I took a deep breath, years of pent-up frustration pouring out. "You know what, Patricia? I may be from the Midwest, but my family's company is one of the largest agricultural suppliers in the country. That little lake house where we got married? It's part of a 500-acre estate that's been in my family for generations." There was stunned silence on the other end of the line. "But you know what?" I continued. "None of that matters. What matters is that Ben and I love each other. We support each other, and we don't need your approval or your toxic presence in our lives." You can't just cut us out," Patricia sputtered. "We're his parents." "You're right, you are his parents, but that doesn't give you the right to control his life or belittle his choices. Ben has made his decision, and I stand by him. If you ever want to be part of our lives again, you need to take a long, hard look at your behavior and make some serious changes." I could hear Patricia's ragged breathing on the other end of the line. When she spoke again, her voice was small, almost broken. I don't know how. For a moment, I felt a flicker of pity. "Start by apologizing. To Ben, to Sarah, to Mark. Seek therapy. Learn to respect boundaries. It won't be easy, but if you truly want to be part of our lives, that's what it will take." There was a long pause. I'll think about it," she finally said, before hanging up. I sat there, phone in hand, feeling like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Ben stirred beside me, his eyes full of concern and love. "Was that my mother?" he asked softly. I nodded, recounting the conversation. When I finished, Ben pulled me into a tight embrace. "I'm so proud of you," he whispered. "You stood your ground, but you also left the door open. That's more than she deserves." I leaned into his warmth, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. "Do you think she'll change?" Ben sighed. "I don't know, but what I do know is that we're stronger together. Whatever happens, we'll face it as a team." As we lay there, the morning sun streaming through the windows, I realized that this was the true happy ending. Not a fairy tale where all conflicts magically resolve, but a real, messy, beautiful life where we choose each other every day. Patricia might never change. She might never be the mother-in-law I'd hoped for. But that was okay, because I had Ben and Sarah and a whole new family that accepted and loved me for who I was. And in the end, that was all that mattered. The sound of shattering glass pierced the air, followed by a string of expletives that would make a sailor blush. I rushed into the kitchen, my heart pounding, to find Mark standing over a mess of broken dishes and spilled pasta sauce. "Damn it, Julia! Can't you put things away properly?" he snapped, his face flushed with anger. I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to point out that he was the one who had insisted on reorganizing the cabinets last week. Instead, I grabbed a broom and dustpan. "It's okay, honey. Accidents happen. Let me clean this up." As I swept up the shards, Mark stomped out of the kitchen, muttering under his breath. I sighed, feeling the weight of tension settle over our once peaceful home. "Everything all right down there?" Dennis's voice called from upstairs. "Fine, Dad," I shouted back, wincing at the strain in my voice. "Just a little accident, nothing to worry about." I finished cleaning and started on a new batch of pasta sauce, my mind wandering to happier times. It hadn't always been like this. When Mark and I first got married, we were blissfully happy. But then his father's accident changed everything. The timer on the stove buzzed, snapping me back to reality. I stirred the sauce and called out, "Dinner's ready!" Mark trudged back into the kitchen, his mood seemingly improved. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, nuzzling my neck. "Smells good, babe. Sorry about earlier." I leaned into his embrace, savoring the moment of peace. "It's okay. Let's just enjoy dinner, all right?" We set the table as Dennis made his way downstairs, each step slow and deliberate. I rushed to help him into his chair, ignoring Mark's impatient sigh. "How are you feeling today, Dennis?" I asked, spooning pasta onto his plate. He smiled weakly. "Better, thanks to you, Julia. Don't know what I'd do without you." Mark rolled his eyes. "Dad, you've got to start doing more for yourself. Julia's not your nurse." I shot Mark a warning glance. "It's fine. I'm happy to help." We ate in uncomfortable silence, the only sounds the scraping of forks against plates. I was about to attempt some small talk when the doorbell rang. Mark jumped up. "I'll get it!" I frowned, surprised by his eagerness. A moment later, I heard a familiar voice that made my stomach churn. "Hello, darlings." Patricia's shrill tone carried through the house. "I hope I'm not interrupting dinner." Mark's mother swept into the dining room, all designer clothes and overpowering perfume. She air-kissed Mark's cheeks before turning to me with a tight smile. "Julia, dear, you look tired. Are you getting enough rest?" I forced a smile. "I'm fine, Patricia. Would you like to join us for dinner?" "Oh no, I've already eaten. I just stopped by to discuss something with Mark." She turned to her son. "Do you have a moment, sweetheart?" Mark nodded eagerly. "Of course, Mom. Let's talk in the study." As they left, I caught a glimpse of Patricia slipping an envelope into Mark's hand. My curiosity piqued. I strained to hear their hushed conversation, but could only make out fragments. Perfect opportunity. She doesn't need to know. Take care of everything. A chill ran down my spine. What were they planning? Dennis cleared his throat, drawing my attention back to the table. His eyes, usually clouded with confusion, were surprisingly sharp. "Julia," he said softly, "I think we need to talk." Before I could respond, Mark and Patricia returned, both wearing suspiciously cheerful expressions. "Great news," Mark announced. "Mom's invited us on a trip to Europe, 2 weeks in Paris and Rome. Isn't that exciting?" I blinked, stunned. "But what about your father? We can't just leave him alone." Patricia waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, we'll hire a nurse. It'll be fine." As Mark launched into enthusiastic travel plans, I caught Dennis's eye. He gave me a subtle nod, confirming my growing suspicion that something wasn't right. In that moment, I realized our seemingly perfect family was about to be turned upside down. And I had a sinking feeling that I was the only one not in on the secret. The moving truck rumbled away, leaving us standing in Patricia's driveway, surrounded by boxes and uncertainty. I took a deep breath, trying to quell the anxiety bubbling in my chest. This was supposed to be temporary, just until we could find a place better suited for Dennis's recovery. But as I caught Patricia's critical gaze sweeping over our belongings, I had a sinking feeling that temporary might stretch longer than I'd hoped. "Well, don't just stand there gawking," Patricia chirped, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Let's get you settled in." Mark grabbed a box and followed his mother inside, leaving me to help Dennis navigate the front steps. As we made our way into the house, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were crossing a threshold into something far more complicated than a simple living arrangement. The first few days were a whirlwind of unpacking and adjusting. Patricia flitted about, offering unsolicited advice on everything from how to arrange our clothes to the proper way to make coffee. I bit my tongue, reminding myself that she was doing us a favor by taking us in. One morning, I was helping Dennis with his physical therapy exercises when Patricia burst into the room, her face pinched with displeasure. "Julia, dear," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "I couldn't help but notice you've rearranged the guest room. I thought we agreed you'd keep things as they were." I blinked, caught off guard. "I'm sorry, Patricia. I just moved a few things to make it easier for Dennis to get around." Patricia's eyes narrowed. "Well, I'd appreciate it if you'd consult me before making any changes. This is still my house, after all." As she turned to leave, I saw Dennis roll his eyes behind her back. I stifled a laugh, grateful for the moment of shared frustration. The weeks wore on, and Patricia's helpful suggestions became more frequent and less subtle. She critiqued my cooking, my cleaning, even the way I helped Dennis. Mark, ever the dutiful son, seemed oblivious to the growing tension. One evening, I was folding laundry when I overheard Patricia and Mark talking in hushed tones in the study. "I'm just saying, Mark, she's not exactly wife material," Patricia hissed. "The way she coddles your father, it's like she's forgotten her place in this family." My hands froze mid-fold, my heart pounding in my ears. Mark's response was muffled, but I caught enough to make my blood run cold. "I know, Mom, but we need her right now, just until Dad's better, and we can—" The rest of his sentence was lost as they moved further into the room. I stood there, rooted to the spot, my mind reeling. What were they planning? And how could Mark talk about me like that? Later that night, as Mark snored softly beside me, I stared at the ceiling, my thoughts a tangled mess. I thought about the life we'd left behind, the dreams we'd had. When had everything gone so wrong? A soft knock at the door jolted me from my reverie. I padded across the room, opening it to find Dennis standing there, looking more alert than I'd seen him in weeks. "Julia," he whispered, his eyes darting nervously down the hall, "we need to talk. There's something you should know about Patricia and Mark." My heart raced as I ushered him into the room. As Dennis began to speak, his words confirming my worst fears and revealing even darker truths, I felt the last vestiges of my old life crumbling away. In that moment, standing in the dim light of Patricia's guest room, I realized that the family I thought I'd married into was nothing but a carefully constructed facade. And as Dennis laid bare the web of lies and manipulation that surrounded us, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. With trembling hands, I reached for my phone. It was time to make some calls and start planning my next move. Because one thing was crystal clear. I couldn't stay in this house of secrets and lies for much longer. As the first light of dawn crept through the windows, I made a silent vow. I would protect Dennis, uncover the truth, and find a way out of this mess, no matter the cost. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen window, mocking my exhaustion. I'd been up since dawn, preparing breakfast, tidying the house, and helping Dennis with his morning routine. As I scrubbed dishes, my mind wandered to the life I'd imagined for myself. This certainly wasn't it. "Julia!" Patricia's shrill voice cut through my reverie. "Where's my morning tea?" I bit back a sigh. "Coming, Patricia." As I set the steaming cup before her, Patricia wrinkled her nose. "Is this Earl Grey? You know I prefer English breakfast in the morning." "I'm sorry," I said, forcing a smile. "We're out of English breakfast. I'll pick some up today." Patricia huffed. "See that you do. And while you're at it, the living room could use a good dusting. Really, Julia, I expected better from you." I clenched my jaw, fighting the urge to snap back. Instead, I nodded and retreated to the kitchen, where I found Mark lounging with his coffee. "Honey," I started, "I could really use your help today. Dennis has a doctor's appointment, and I need to run errands." Mark cut me off with a wave of his hand. "Sorry, babe. I've got a big meeting at work. You can handle it, right?" Before I could respond, he was out the door, leaving me alone with my frustration and a mountain of tasks. The day dragged on, each hour bringing a new challenge. Dennis struggled with his physical therapy, his progress seeming to plateau. Patricia's complaints echoed through the house, a constant reminder of my perceived shortcomings. By evening, I was at my breaking point. As I helped Dennis into bed, he squeezed my hand, his eyes full of concern. "Julia," he said softly, "you can't keep going like this. It's too much for one person." I felt tears prick at my eyes. "What choice do I have, Dennis? Mark's always working, and Patricia—" I trailed off, not wanting to speak ill of his wife. Dennis shook his head. "Patricia has always been difficult, but this is beyond the pale. And Mark?" He sighed heavily. "My son should be ashamed of himself." Just then, Patricia's voice rang out from downstairs. "Julia, where are you? These floors won't mop themselves." I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. "I should go," I murmured to Dennis. As I descended the stairs, I found Patricia standing in the foyer, arms crossed. "Really, Julia," she began, her tone dripping with disdain, "I don't know why you insist on spending so much time with Dennis. He's perfectly capable of putting himself to bed." Something inside me snapped. He's your husband, Patricia, and he needs our help. Why can't you see that? Patricia's eyes widened, then narrowed dangerously. How dare you speak to me like that in my own home? I've been nothing but generous, taking you in, and this is how you repay me? Generous? I laughed bitterly. You've done nothing but criticize and complain since we got here. I'm doing my best to take care of everyone, and it's never enough for you. Our voices had risen, echoing through the house. I heard the front door open, and Mark stepped in, looking bewildered. What's going on here? He demanded. Patricia turned to her son, tears welling in her eyes. Oh, Mark, your wife is being absolutely dreadful to me. I don't know how much more of this I can take. Mark's face hardened as he looked at me. Julia, what's wrong with you? How could you treat my mother this way? I stared at him, incredulous. Are you serious? After everything I've done, you're taking her side? The tension in the room was palpable. I looked from Mark to Patricia, suddenly seeing them clearly for the first time. They were two sides of the same coin, manipulative and self-serving. In that moment, I made a decision. I'm done, I said quietly. I can't do this anymore. Mark's eyes widened. What are you saying? I straightened my spine, meeting his gaze. I'm saying that something has to change. Either we leave this house or I'm leaving alone. The silence that followed was deafening. As I turned and walked away, leaving Mark and Patricia stunned in the foyer, I felt a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. I had no idea what would happen next, but I knew one thing for certain: things would never be the same again. The days following my outburst were tense, to say the least. Mark barely spoke to me, spending most of his time at work or locked away in Patricia's study. Patricia, for her part, had taken to ignoring me entirely, communicating only through icy glares and pointed sighs. But amid the frosty silence, I found an unexpected source of warmth: Dennis. One morning, as I helped him with his exercises, he grasped my hand firmly. Julia, he said, his voice stronger than I'd heard in weeks, I want you to know how much I appreciate everything you're doing. Tears pricked at my eyes. Thank you, Dennis. That means more than you know. He nodded, a determined look crossing his face. I've been thinking. It's time I started pushing myself harder. Will you help me? Of course, I replied, feeling a spark of hope ignite in my chest. Over the next few weeks, Dennis and I fell into a new routine. We'd start each day with more challenging exercises, pushing the boundaries of what he could do. Some days were frustrating, filled with setbacks and pain. But there were also moments of triumph. The first time he stood unassisted, the day he managed to walk the length of the hallway with just a cane. Each small victory felt like a personal win, a reminder that my efforts weren't in vain. As Dennis grew stronger, so did my resolve. One afternoon, as we rested after a particularly grueling session, Dennis turned to me with a serious expression. Julia, there's something you need to know about Patricia and Mark. My heart raced. What is it? Before he could answer, the door burst open. Patricia stood there, her face a mask of fury. What do you think you're doing? She hissed. You're pushing him too hard. He's not ready for this. I stood my ground. Dennis is making great progress. The doctor agrees that... The doctor? Patricia interrupted. What doctor? I haven't authorized any appointments. I did, Dennis said firmly. I'm perfectly capable of making my own medical decisions, Patricia. Patricia's face turned an alarming shade of red. Mark! She shrieked. Mark, come here at once. Moments later, Mark appeared, looking flustered. What's going on? Patricia pointed an accusing finger at me. Your wife has been making decisions behind our backs. She's endangering your father's health. Mark's expression hardened. Is this true, Julia? I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I've been helping Dennis with his recovery. Yes, and he's improving. If you'd been around more, you'd see that. Mark's eyes flashed with anger. How dare you? We took you in, gave you a place to stay, and this is how you repay us? Repay you, I laughed bitterly. I've been working myself to the bone, taking care of this family while you two plot and scheme behind my back. The room fell silent. Dennis cleared his throat. Son, your wife is right. She's been doing all the work while you and your mother. He trailed off, shaking his head. Mark's face paled. Dad, you don't understand. We're just trying to protect you. Protect me from what? Dennis demanded. From getting better? From regaining my independence? Patricia stepped forward, her voice sickly sweet. Darling, you know your condition is delicate. We just want what's best for you. I watched the exchange, pieces falling into place. The hushed conversations, the mysterious meetings, the resistance to Dennis's recovery, it all pointed to something sinister. "What are you two hiding?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Mark and Patricia exchanged a panicked look. In that moment I knew. Whatever secret they were keeping, it was big, and it had everything to do with Dennis's accident and recovery. Dennis struggled to his feet, leaning heavily on his cane. "I think it's time we had a family meeting," he said, his voice filled with a quiet authority I'd never heard before. No more secrets, no more lies. As I helped Dennis to the living room, my mind raced. Whatever was about to be revealed, I had a feeling it would change everything. And I knew with absolute certainty that I was ready to face it head on. The time for playing happy families was over. Now it was time for the truth. The tension in the living room was palpable as we gathered for the long-overdue family meeting. Dennis sat in his armchair, his posture more upright than I'd seen in months. Mark and Patricia perched on the edge of the sofa, exchanging nervous glances. I stood by the fireplace, my heart pounding. Before anyone could speak, Patricia cleared her throat. "Before we get into whatever this is, I have an announcement to make." She plastered on a bright smile. "Mark and I are going on a vacation to Europe, 2 weeks in Paris and Rome. Isn't that wonderful?" I felt like I'd been slapped. "What, now? But what about Dennis's care?" Mark avoided my gaze. "We thought you could handle it, Julia. You've been doing such a great job." Dennis's eyes narrowed. "And when were you planning to inform me of this little getaway?" Patricia waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, darling, we didn't want to burden you with the details. You know how travel talk exhausts you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So you're just going to leave? After everything that's happened?" "Now, Julia," Patricia said, her voice sickly sweet. "Don't be dramatic. It's just a little vacation. We all need a break sometimes, don't we?" Something inside me snapped. "A break? A break from what exactly? From watching me run myself ragged, taking care of your family while you two scheme and plot?" Mark stood up, his face flushed. "That's enough, Julia. You're out of line." "No, she's not," Dennis said quietly. "Julia's right. It's time we address the elephant in the room." He turned to Mark and Patricia. "What really happened the night of my accident?" The color drained from Patricia's face. "I don't know what you mean, darling. You fell down the stairs, remember?" Dennis shook his head. "No, I don't remember. But I've been having flashes, arguments, raised voices, something about the company." Mark's hands were shaking. "Dad, you're confused. The doctors said your memory might be affected." "Stop lying," I shouted, surprising even myself with the force of my words. "Whatever you're hiding, it ends now. Dennis deserves the truth." Patricia stood up abruptly. "This is ridiculous. Mark, we're leaving. Now." As they moved towards the door, I blocked their path. "Not until you explain yourselves." Mark's eyes flashed with anger. "Move, Julia. You have no idea what you're getting into." "Then enlighten me," I challenged. For a moment, I thought Mark might push past me, but then his shoulders sagged. "Fine. You want the truth? Dad was going to sell the company. He said he was tired, wanted to retire. But Mom and we couldn't let that happen. We tried to talk him out of it, but he wouldn't listen." Dennis's voice was barely a whisper. "So you what? Pushed me down the stairs?" Patricia let out a strangled sob. "It was an accident. We were arguing, and you just fell. We never meant for any of this to happen." The room spun around me as the implications of their confession sank in. They had been willing to let Dennis languish, to keep him dependent, all to maintain control of the company. "You monsters," I breathed. Mark reached for me. "Julia, please. You have to understand." I recoiled from his touch. "Understand what? That you've been lying to me our entire marriage? That you were willing to sacrifice your own father's health for money?" Patricia's eyes hardened. "You ungrateful little—" "Enough!" Dennis's voice boomed through the room. With effort, he pushed himself to his feet. "Mark, Patricia, I want you out of this house. Now." "But Dad—" Mark started. Dennis held up a hand. "No, I've heard enough. Go on your vacation. When you return, my lawyers will be in touch." As Mark and Patricia hurried out, casting panicked glances over their shoulders, I felt a strange mix of relief and terror. The truth was out, but the battle was far from over. Dennis turned to me, his eyes filled with a mixture of pain and determination. "Julia, I'm going to need your help. Are you with me?" I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. Every step of the way, Dennis. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. As the door slammed behind Mark and Patricia, I knew we were standing on the precipice of something monumental. The life I had known was over. But perhaps, just perhaps, something better was about to begin. The house felt eerily quiet in the days following Mark and Patricia's hasty departure. Dennis and I moved through the rooms like ghosts, each lost in our own thoughts. The weight of recent revelations hung heavy in the air, a constant reminder of the betrayal we'd both endured. On the third morning, I was preparing breakfast when Dennis wheeled himself into the kitchen, a determined look on his face. "Julia," he said, his voice stronger than I'd heard in months, "we need to talk." I set down the spatula, my heart racing. "What is it, Dennis?" He took a deep breath. "I haven't been entirely honest with you. My recovery, it's been progressing faster than I've let on." To my astonishment, Dennis pushed himself up from the wheelchair, standing on shaky but steady legs. He took a few tentative steps towards me, no cane in sight. "Oh my God," I breathed. "Dennis, this is amazing, but why didn't you tell me?" His eyes clouded with shame. "I was afraid of what Patricia and Mark might do if they knew I was getting better. But after what happened, I can't hide anymore." As the implications of his words sank in, a mix of emotions washed over me. Joy at his progress, anger at the deception, and a growing sense of determination. "We need to act fast," I said, my mind racing. "Mark and Patricia could be back any day. We need a plan." Dennis nodded grimly. "I've been thinking about that. I know where Patricia keeps all the important documents, financial records, company papers, everything. If we can get our hands on those..." "We could expose them," I finished, a spark of hope igniting in my chest. For the next few hours, Dennis and I pored over the house, searching for any evidence of Mark and Patricia's misdeeds. We found hidden bank statements showing suspicious transfers, emails discussing the accident, in coded language, and even a draft of a revised will that would have left Dennis with nothing. As we sat surrounded by damning evidence, Dennis's phone buzzed. His face paled as he read the message. "It's Mark," he said, his voice tight. "They're coming back early. They'll be here tomorrow morning." Panic clawed at my throat. What do we do? Dennis's eyes hardened with resolve. "We finish this tonight." What followed was a whirlwind of activity. We scanned documents, made copies, and prepared a detailed timeline of events. Dennis called his lawyer, arranging an emergency meeting for first thing in the morning. As night fell, we sat in the living room, the fruits of our labor spread out before us. The magnitude of what we were about to do hit me like a tidal wave. "Dennis," I whispered, "are you sure about this? Once we do this, there's no going back." He reached out, grasping my hand tightly. "Julia, you've been more family to me in these past months than my own flesh and blood. Whatever happens, we face it together." Tears pricked at my eyes as I nodded, squeezing his hand in return. Suddenly, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway shattered the moment. My blood ran cold as I heard familiar voices approaching the front door. "They're back," I hissed, panic rising in my chest. "What do we do?" Dennis's face set in grim determination. "We stand our ground. No more hiding. No more lies." As the key turned in the lock, I felt a strange calm settle over me. We'd prepared for this, planned for every contingency. Whatever Mark and Patricia threw at us, we were ready. The door swung open, revealing Mark and Patricia, their faces a mix of surprise and suspicion as they took in the scene before them. "What's going on here?" Mark demanded, his eyes darting between Dennis and me. I stood up slowly, my heart pounding but my voice steady. "Welcome home," I said, my tone laced with steel. "We need to talk." As Mark and Patricia stepped into the room, the air crackled with tension. This was it, the moment of truth. Everything we'd been through, everything we'd discovered had led to this confrontation, and I was ready to fight with everything I had. The tension in the room was suffocating as Mark and Patricia stood frozen in the doorway, their eyes darting between Dennis and me, and the incriminating documents spread across the coffee table. "What is all this?" Patricia demanded, her voice shrill. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "This is the truth, Patricia. All of it." Mark stepped forward, his face a mask of fury. "What have you done, Julia, going through our private papers? This is a violation." "No," Dennis interrupted, slowly rising to his feet. "The only violation here is what you two have done to this family." Patricia's face drained of color as she watched her husband stand. Dennis, how... You're walking. No thanks to you, I spat, my anger finally boiling over. We know everything. The accident, the company, the will, all of it. Mark lunged forward, reaching for the papers, but I was quicker. I snatched them up, backing away. Don't even think about it, Mark. It's over. You don't understand, Mark pleaded, his composure cracking. We were trying to protect the family legacy. Dad was going to throw it all away. Dennis's voice was cold as steel. It wasn't yours to protect, son. The company, the money, none of it matters more than trust and family, something you seem to have forgotten. Patricia's eyes narrowed dangerously. You ungrateful little witch, she hissed at me. We took you in, gave you everything, and this is how you repay us? By turning my husband against us? I stood my ground, meeting her gaze. You did this to yourselves, Patricia. Your greed, your manipulation. It ends now. The room erupted into chaos. Mark lunged for the documents again, this time managing to grab a handful. Patricia screamed accusations, her carefully manicured facade crumbling. Dennis tried to intervene, but in the scuffle, he lost his balance. Time seemed to slow as I watched Dennis fall. In that moment, all I could think about was that night, the night of his accident. Had it looked like this? Had he reached out, desperate for help, only to be betrayed by those he trusted most? I dove forward, managing to catch Dennis before he hit the ground. As we stumbled, my elbow caught the edge of the coffee table. Pain exploded through my arm, but I held on, easing Dennis onto the sofa. Enough, I shouted, my voice raw with emotion. Look at what you're doing. Your own father. You'd risk hurting him again just to cover your tracks? Mark froze, the papers clutched in his trembling hands. For the first time I saw a flicker of shame in his eyes. Patricia, however, was beyond reason. You have no right, she seethed. This is our home, our family. You're nothing but an interloper, a gold digger who... That's enough, Patricia, Dennis cut in, his voice quiet but firm. Julia is more family to me now than either of you, and as of this moment you are both no longer welcome in this house. The silence that followed was deafening. Mark's face crumpled, the reality of what he'd done finally sinking in. Patricia stood rigid, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. You can't be serious, she finally managed. You can't just throw us out. Where will we go? I stepped forward, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. That's not our problem anymore. You have until morning to pack your things and leave. If you're not gone by then, we'll have no choice but to involve the authorities. As the weight of our words sank in, I saw the fight drain out of Mark and Patricia. They looked suddenly small, defeated, no longer the towering figures of authority and control they'd once been. Dennis reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. It's over, he whispered. But as I looked at the broken family before me, at the husband I'd once loved and the life I'd thought I wanted, I realized that this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning, and for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope for the future. No, I said softly, straightening my shoulders. It's just beginning. The morning sun streamed through the windows as Dennis and I sat in his study, surrounded by stacks of documents and a sense of grim determination. It had been a week since we'd confronted Mark and Patricia, a week of sleepless nights and endless preparation. Today was the day we'd take everything public. Are you ready for this? Dennis asked, his voice steady but his eyes betraying a mix of sadness and resolve. I took a deep breath, nodding. As ready as I'll ever be. What about you? This is your family we're about to expose. Dennis reached across the desk, grasping my hand. You're my family now, Julia. What Mark and Patricia did, they stopped being family the moment they chose greed over love. With trembling fingers, I pressed send on the email that would change everything. In an instant, our carefully compiled evidence was on its way to the board of directors, the company's legal team, and select members of the press. The response was almost immediate. My phone began buzzing incessantly with calls and messages. Dennis's lawyer arrived, looking grim but determined. As the morning wore on, the story broke across local news channels. Breaking news: scandal rocks prominent family business. CEO Dennis Hawthorne alleges attempted murder and fraud by son and wife. I watched the headlines scroll across the screen, feeling a surreal mix of vindication and sorrow. This was it. The moment of truth we'd been working towards. Suddenly, the front door burst open. Mark stormed in, his face contorted with rage. "How could you do this?" he shouted. "You've ruined everything." I stood my ground, facing the man I once thought I loved. "No, Mark. You ruined everything the moment you chose money over your father's life." Patricia appeared behind him, her usual poise shattered. "We can fix this," she pleaded, her eyes wild. "Dennis, darling, surely we can come to some arrangement. Think of the scandal, the family name." "Enough!" Dennis's voice boomed through the room. He stood, walking towards them without assistance. "The family name? The only thing tarnishing our name is your actions. It's over." As if on cue, the sound of police sirens filled the air. Mark's face drained of color. "You called the police? Your own son?" Dennis's expression was a mixture of pain and resolve. "You stopped being my son the moment you conspired against me." "Julia," he turned to me, "would you show the officers in?" I nodded, moving towards the door. As I passed Mark, he grabbed my arm. "Julia, please," he begged. "We can start over. I love you." For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd married. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by the stranger he'd become. "No, Mark," I said softly. "You love what I represented, a way to keep your lifestyle, your inheritance, but you never truly loved me." As the police entered, reading Mark and Patricia their rights, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The nightmare was finally ending. Hours later, after the dust had settled and the house was quiet once more, Dennis and I sat on the porch, watching the sun set. "What now?" I asked, feeling both exhausted and exhilarated. Dennis smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes for the first time in months. "Now, we live. I'm thinking of selling the company, maybe starting a foundation. And you, Julia, you have your whole life ahead of you." I felt tears prick my eyes. I don't even know who I am anymore, outside of all this. Dennis squeezed my hand. "You're the woman who saved my life, who stood up for what's right no matter the cost. That's who you are, Julia, and I couldn't be prouder to call you family." As the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years I felt truly free to discover who I was, what I wanted, and where I belonged. "You're right," I said, smiling through my tears. "This isn't an ending, it's a new beginning." Dennis raised his glass of iced tea. "To new beginnings and to family, the kind we choose." I clinked my glass against his, feeling a surge of hope for the future. "To family," I echoed. As night fell, I realized that sometimes the greatest acts of love involve letting go. I had let go of a toxic marriage, of false dreams, and of the person I thought I needed to be. In return, I had gained something far more precious: self-respect, true family, and the courage to face whatever came next. The journey had been painful, but as I sat there with Dennis, I knew that every step had been worth it. We had faced our demons, exposed the truth, and come out stronger on the other side. And now, finally, we were free to write our own stories.